Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. The insecurity situation in the northeastern region is what we are discussing now. As we look at the state of the nation, we started by looking at the BBI process that got the green light yesterday from IEBC, and now it is set to go to the next level. That is to go to the county assemblies for debate, the Constitutional Amendment Bill of 2020. Now we are talking about the insecurity situation in the northeastern region, and Honorable Professor Mohamed Sheikh Omar, you have been shedding light on how bad the situation has been for the residents and even those who live in those the counties in the northeastern region. But before we went to the break, I had just begun probing you on what as part of the leadership of the region, you're doing to steer, what I would term peace-building initiatives and even foster security in the region, engaging the locals and talking to them to just change their mindset, including even young people who increasingly are becoming recruited in some of these gangs. I want to understand more about some of the proactive approaches, some hope for people who come from the region and even would desire to go work in the region, for us to know that there is something being done to change the narrative.
You see, I travel around the world, and what I have realized is this, what we call community policing. Community policing is a very, very important thing, and quite critical. Even if someone might argue that it is there in Kenya, it may not be pronounced. I'll give you a simple example. For a girl in the village, and God forbid if she is raped, she will not come to a police station and speak to a male police officer simply because of the obvious reasons. And therefore, if we had female police, community policing officers, almost in every village, couple of them even, and those police officers will go to weddings, share time with the ladies there, communicate up with them, discuss with them, the relationship between the government and the police service would have been much closer. A lot of barriers that would have been there would have been breached. That young lady that I've used as an example will definitely pick up a call and speak to Savine, who is a police officer in that police station. Because of the community policing that officer has done, the relationship. They have gone for henna, they have gone for parties, they have discussed, and obviously that working relation, there is a distance of, obviously that will be there.
But we have female police officers.
Yeah, but do they leave the barracks? Do they leave the stations and go and interact as police officers so that communities can feel at ease? Leave alone the wider community. If they would be interacting in schools, making school sessions for community policings, that is constant, not once in a very long while, that is there on a regular basis, the relationship that would have been built, the information that would have been gathered by the national service, security service, would have been huge. That would have benefited this country in terms of getting intelligence at the very, very, very local. But if it becomes us versus them, you know what I mean by us versus them, we versus them, it becomes an issue. And therefore that rope of curtain would have been taken off. And therefore the community policing must take precedence before issues happen. And therefore they would have been miles ahead to even understand how people think within the society and how people can understand to resolve matters that are critical within it. And therefore that is one of the levels, the basic levels that must be working, that must be taken forth and taken forward. And I want to categorically say this, that unless bottom-up is considered in terms of considering things, unless we avoid all size fits for all on matters of national interest, then we will move no mile forward.
All right, well said. I'll leave it at that. There is a lot that we can explore when it comes to the insecurity situation in the northeastern region, but for now, let's just leave it at that. You're also a public health expert, Amedik, and I'd like to take you to the world of health now for us to focus on some health issues that we are currently facing as a country. COVID-19 is actually one of the things that has really taken a better part of the conversation in the last, from March last year, and we're still battling this particular pandemic. As at yesterday, the number of positive cases in Kenya were reported to be at 100,193. Yesterday, there were 141 new COVID-19 cases that were recorded by the Ministry of Health. And this is coming just a day after, reporting no COVID-19 deaths, but 6 people, unfortunately, succumbed yesterday to the disease. And currently, the death toll stands at 1,750. We're still reporting quite a number of recoveries. 207 new cases, new patients recovered yesterday. And of course, it's something that has taken time, and I'd like to explore your expertise into this particular subject. Since we reported the first case of COVID-19 in March last year, how would you rate or describe how generally we have manage the pandemic as a country, plus or minus?
Look, I want to tell Kenyans one thing, that we should not take off our guard, meaning that we have to be vigilant as well. We have to be alert, but not alarmed. Why I say that is that we don't want Kenyans to be alarmed that there are deaths happening every day, but we want them to understand, to be alert, so that they know that we should not drop our guard. We should not drop our guard in terms of protecting ourselves on our own individual basis. The other thing that is important is that COVID-19 is here to stay, as I've said several times. You see, as an epidemiologist myself, in infectious diseases particularly, what we look at, and I don't want to use scientific terms at this particular stage, but what we look at is the rate of infection is happening. Why? You see, if I am COVID positive and you are negative, if I have got a barrier between you and I, then the chances for you to pick up is low. We are at social distance now, as they use the term social distance for the layman's, but we are at a distance to avoid infections. And we have enough space around us, so there is enough airflow around us. That puts us into a situation where we say the level of possibility of infection is lower because of that action that we have undertaken. And therefore, what we call the chance for people to get that infection from that particular infected individual becomes lower. So the risk ratio here is categorized accordingly, and I don't want to use scientific terms severally. The risk ratio here is looked at from an angle to say that we are at a very small space, we are not on a mask, we are continuously in a public transport that will stay in traffic jam for a very long time. These are some things that may pick up a few individuals to think categorically. Can I walk a distance? Can I walk even 1 kilometer? You know, it gives me exercise, it gives me a good health, and it also reduces my chances. And that is the risk ratio there.
Of infection.
Of infection, because I'm not going to stay in 1 hour in the traffic jam compared to half an hour that I will say I have walked long enough, I can pick the matatu again from here. So you have achieved double. You have reduced your number of presence in that. And I want to return back to the point where I've said COVID-19 is here to stay, like flu, like any other flu. You see, flu was introduced. It's not going to go anywhere.
There's no time we'll be out of the woods.
It will never go away. But the rate of infections, the rate at which it is going at, will obviously dwindle in the end. But what I'm only trying to say is cases will remain, whether there is 1 case in a whole city or 2 cases in a whole city. It is an infection that has come to stay with us. So that is why we should not drop our guard. And I want to thank Kenyans for the great that they have done. But I want to go back again to the issue of what happened around the world. And you see, 100 million people were infected of the latest data. As by yesterday's data, about 100 million, 123, I don't know, thousand. So 100 million people were infected. Of that, 2 million died. So the rate is still, 2 million is a huge number still. You see, case fatality rate is what we use in scientific terminologies. Case fatality rates that we always look at. Ideally, it should be 0. But we are at 2% almost. If you compare, 2 million to 100 million. So you're looking at that. So, but what I really want to see is that a zero infection to be continuing on. That cannot happen until our behaviors change. Changing behavior of a society takes a period of time. That is why I'm saying COVID-19 will stay here. Not because necessarily that it will be there to kill all of us. But what I am saying is that naturally human behavior cannot change overnight or over a short period of time. Now, over a short period that COVID was here, other diseases reduced according to information we are getting. I mean,
because of the changed behavior.
Changed behavior. Wash hands, washing the hands, the flu that everybody used to get when you are in the matatu and they cough, now is reduced by the mask. So these, obviously, those diseases reduced because people started changing their behavior. If we continue to change our behavior, then the possibilities of COVID-19 to be trashing us all will be reduced and reduced to a level that is manageable.
All right. Let's look at some of the lessons that this pandemic has taught us. If you look at our health sector, what are some of the vulnerabilities that became very evident the moment we reported our first case? What is it about our healthcare system that probably wasn't going right, that COVID has just exposed?
You see, there has been an excitement on devolution, particularly when health was devolved. So we said health machinane. I've got 38 health centers. And of the 38, only about 2 are operational. I'm talking of health centers.
Out
only
of 38
2 are operational.
Yet money was invested to
that is what I'm coming to.
Build the 36.
Healthcare workers, getting healthcare workers to very rural villages has been a challenge. What has been a challenge is revenue trickling down from the top to the machinane. What has been a challenge is because of the process of governance and counties that were not ready as yet. You see? So I might be a bit radical to say, until the health system is, designed in a way that it can be absorbed by devolution, should we have them at the national level? That conversation has not been discussed. Simply because money is involved. Simply because county governments want to hold back onto that. Getting that revenue for health so that they can handle it. One place that I really liked, to be frank with you.
So you're saying we were not ready to devolve health?
We were not ready to devolve health. And for me, people would have different opinions. We would have devolved all services in, particular categories and in shifts and in particular patterns. We would not have devolved every or 3/4 of the services being provided to Kenyans all at one go. You see, we would have devolved particular parts of the devolved units, and then we would have done that in the next 5 or 10 years until those ones were established, well established, and the county governments have taken, got the hang of it, that surely we can provide services onto that.
What are the specific gaps in our health sector that probably would, put us at a very vulnerable position in dealing with the pandemic as serious as COVID-19?
You see, we have got level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, and level 6 hospitals, or health services, health services, let me use it that way, because a dispensary is not a hospital. So those categories, to those levels, up to the 6 levels, the level 6 is a national hospital like the Kenyatta, like the Spine, like, we talk about Moi. These are the level 6 hospitals that are referral hospitals, up the level there. Level 5 is regional hospitals. And then level 4's and county hospitals. Level 4 now goes to, sub-counties, for example. And then the dispensaries and the health centers. These units need to be furbished in several levels. If I was the decision maker, I would have said level 1, 2, and 3 to be handled by the county governments, because that's the primary healthcare service. The primary healthcare services that provides the basics for healthcare is, stationed in the far-flung village. And the mother who wants vaccination for her baby, the antenatal clinics, the wounds being taken care of, small surgeries being taken care of, minor surgeries rather. These are the categories that would have taken off. And then provision of service such as, COVID-19. I would have liked to see COVID-19 taken up by the public health services straight on, because prevention is better than cure. But what really happened is there's been a lot of mix-up. Some of the mix-ups that happened is that we immediately rushed and looking at equipments. Very good. That is important. That is no doubt one step forward that's been taken. But it would have gone in parallel with public health, education, with public health
and
prevention, measures, with strict public health process that would have taken place. So it would have gone in the same level and concomitant. So, but what really happened is that there has been a wobble, up and here, because the national government wanted some way, the county governments it wanted some way, or the county government is handling what the national government is trying to say should not be handled that way.
All right.
So that is a situation that is bringing a wobble in terms of our way of approach to the COVID-19.
All right.
Plus many things that time will not allow us to discuss.
All right. There are also issues that have been raised with regards to how this has brought about the inequalities, the inequalities in access to quality healthcare by all Kenyans. There were Kenyans who could afford to go for testing, others couldn't afford, others could afford isolation, others couldn't afford. So it depended on who you are, the who is who in the society. What do you think the government has done to just bridge the gap of inequality in access to quality healthcare? And is it effective?
Look, that is a $1 million question. The health system has been overstretched. The challenge that we have has been faced by well-established countries and nations that were far ahead from us in terms of technology, in terms of services, in terms of even money. Countries that were richer than us, the UK, the USA, Spain, all these countries that struggled and were unable to handle the COVID-19 is definitely, we are in the same category of challenges. And that is there. But having said that, that Kenya is, what I'm trying to say is that Kenya is not alone in such challenges. So it is there at a global level. But there are things that we would have done domestically that would have been different. So every Kenyan deserves to be given that particular services. If someone has got a health insurance and can go to Aga Khan the following morning, then the chances of that person surviving better than a villager from a constituency is definitely obvious, simply because of accessibility to health services, better and well-resourced health services. You see, it's not only about access issue. It is about, is the health system there well-resourced? Does it have the capacity to be able to handle X number of patients? And can this, health service X can handle almost, say 100,000 people. Service B cannot handle even 10, patients. But how can we reach that gap? Simply because of two reasons. One is an investment into the health system must be uniform. The investment into the health system must be uniform. And when I'm using the term health system, there are the 6 categories of health systems, that WHO has defined. And I don't want to go into details into that. Your viewers may not be able to understand all this. But in investment in all that at the same level is critically important. So when it comes to financing, when it comes into using technologies, when it comes into using, all these other things that are required, service provision, face-to-face, all this must be looked at. The next level is the level at the mashinane. How effective is the service provision there? And how planning is done? And I wanted to give you an example. Eldoret, I've been to Uasin Gishu. I think it's one of the best places that we can say the health services have been conscious. And remember, Uasin Gishu is the hub of all truckies that come from Mombasa to East and Central Africa. And that's where they stop. And therefore, the transportation hub is there in Eldoret. And what really happens is that the service provision has been examined from those providing to the mashinane, to the grassroots, to the mothers and villagers in the village level, and those that are being catered that are always passing by and coming through.
All right.
So those are some of the approaches that would be necessary to look at, not from one spectrum, but multiple spectrum.
Now you're speaking as a professional in the sector, providing, what you feel will work and offer lasting solutions to really fix some of the challenges we experience in our healthcare system. But then we, unfortunately, are almost running out of time for this conversation. But before we wrap up, I'd just like to give you a chance to also talk about, some of the, many have said COVID-19, the war against COVID-19 sort of took our attention away from other forms of diseases that are really posing a burden to Kenyans and affecting Kenyans in different ways. Probably you can comment on that a little bit before we bring this conversation to a close.
Look, COVID-19 has ravaged societies across the world, across the globe. And it has ravaged and particularly affected the poor more because they became more poorer. Their life savings have been dwindled and used for their times that they have been told to isolate themselves. Which life is better than than earnings, obviously. So lives have been saved through that process. But there is a lot of hunger, in the village. People are hungry, and the special programs right now should take an immediate and swift action. World Food Program have said that the level of hunger that has happened in many parts of the world is so unprecedented. They've even looked at even during the Spanish flu, the level of hunger that really happened at that particular time. Obviously, there is a difference in population right now, and population categorization is also another important thing. We've got aging population at those particular times. But now, currently, if you look at even Kenya as an example, you're looking at 65% to 70% are youngsters, a younger population. And therefore, that is the time they need a lot of energy. That is the time they need a lot of, food, and that's the time they need to grow. And their growth is at the peak. So what is happening here is that hunger has been one of the things that really touched many societies. And you could see, a very simple example. Our children are going out, and while they were staying at home, the number of pregnancies that really happened is a key example, because some of them are going out to get some money, in exchange of, being with a man. And therefore, how much pregnancies that we are trying to see and talk about, and the complications that are coming after that. So children are hungry even at home. For many, their parents may not be able to provide. So they walk out to the streets. And when the schools opened, you could imagine what really happened. Nobody was expecting this. But it is better for us to plan forward and think about things when they are happening. We have narrowed ourselves in prevention of infections only.
All right.
We have not looked at the aftermath. We have not opened the can of worms that we have not imagined the can of worms that will be out there once the schools open. And that is some of the things that really we want to see. So poverty is at its peak.
A hungry man is an angry man. And you can imagine, you can imagine what an angry man can do to society. Thank you so much for also bringing that up. And we really appreciate your time, Mheshimiwa, for creating time for us this particular morning. Honorable Professor Mohamed Sheikh Omar, Member of Parliament, Wajir South, shedding some light on some of the issues that are shaping the news in the country. We've talked about matters BBI, insecurity situation in the northeastern region, and of course also the ongoing war against COVID-19, the progress we are making, the hits and the misses in this particular journey. My name is Safina Cheng Oma, and our sign language interpreter is Lensa Odingo. Thank you so much for creating time for us. We are now going to be paving way for Tamrini. Nancy Okware will be taking you through that. But from us, it's a wrap. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.